the most inspirational story, the rise of Starbucks coffee. Subscribe to the channel and comment down below saying I subscribed to enter this month's shoutout giveaway. As you walk down the street today, take a minute to look up from your phone and notice all the fascinating landscape of life all around you. The seasonally affected trees, the children playing, skipping down the street grasping their mother's hands. And if you're in one of over 31,000 neighborhoods across the planet, take a gander at the Starbucks up ahead. No, not that one, the other one. Or the one behind you. To be honest, you're likely watching this from inside a Starbucks right now. So, how did we get here? How did something as simple as a cup of coffee become the basis for such an internationally renowned brand? In order to understand, we need to go back to where it all began. Full-bodied and full of promise. Howard Schultz, a name most recently associated with his failed presidential bid and his poor decision to betray the city of Seattle and sell their beloved Supersonics, was born in the hometown of Biggie Smalls, Brooklyn. He put himself through college on government grants, and in 1979, at the age of 26, was named general manager of Swedish-based drip coffee machine manufacturer Hammerplast. Stop! Hammerplast! Schultz's duties took him to Seattle to meet with a struggling young coffee house named after a Moby Dick character, Starbucks. Starbucks wasn't thriving by any means, but they did know a thing or two about beans, and roughly a year later, Schultz saw enough potential in them to move to the Northwest. Here, he became their marketing director. This is where things get interesting. While working for the nascent coffee chain, which at the time primarily sold whole bean coffee at only 3 Seattle locations, Schultz took a trip across the pond to Italy to sniff some exotic beans. In Milan, he noticed that nearly every street had a coffee bar. Coffee house, coffee deck, coffee lounge, you get the drift. They liked their coffee, and they liked it communally. Back in the States, people were slowly grinding their beans and turning on their percolator while wiping the crust from their eyes, terrified at the idea of anyone glancing at them. But in Milan, it was more than just an occasional social activity. It was a way of life. These cafes also had something else Americans were not yet terribly familiar with: espresso. Schultz came back to the States, hopped up on new ideas in espresso, mostly espresso, but that helped the ideas flow. He successfully talked 2 of the 3 Starbucks founders, Jerry Baldwin and Gordon Boker, into letting him open a test store of this new lounge style. And despite it being a success, they opted not to pursue the idea chain-wide at the risk of getting into the restaurant business. Good call. After Milan, I flew back to the United States excited to share what I experienced, Schultz wrote in his autobiography Onward, a copy of which is given to every barista upon beginning their employment. But my bosses, the first founders of Starbucks, for whom I had tremendous respect, did not share my dream of recreating the coffee bar experience in Seattle. I was crushed. A splash of brev. Schultz decided he still wanted to give this crazy idea a go and opened a cramped little 700-square-foot cafe named Il Giornale at the base of Seattle's Columbia Center. Il Giornale, which means the newspaper in Italian, quickly became known for whipping up espressos, serving ice cream, and playing opera music, making it the perfect spot to go on the first date. Their staff was so small and funds were limited, so Schultz and other shareholders in the small store were often seen hopping behind the bar to steam milk and pour shots. But he wouldn't have been able to open it alone. Strapped for cash and with his first child on the way, Schultz received financial assistance from the 2 still believing Starbucks founders, Baldwin and Boker, as well as an area doctor who respected Schultz's penchant for taking a gamble. A few years later, the original Starbucks decided to ditch the Northwest in order to pursue a new venture, small-time Bay Area coffee house Pete's Coffee and Tea, and sold their Starbucks chain to Schultz for a crisp $3.8 million. In 1987, Schultz opened new stores in Chicago and Vancouver and British Columbia, bringing their total count to 17. This would have been enough for a lazy schlub like me, but Howard liked pushing and wouldn't stop in the measly double digits. By the dawn of the 90s, Schultz had opened 84 stores, cut the ribbon on an official headquarters in Seattle, and began offering health insurance to employees both part-time and full-time, a practice many other businesses of the like still haven't caught up to. In 1992, the company went public, and in 1996, they hit their 1,000th privately owned location, less than 10 years after Schultz first acquired the brand. And that is one of the things that makes their story of growth so remarkable. While many neighborhoods have 2 or 3 dozen Subway sandwich shops on their block, that is because they are inexpensively franchised centralized with little to no corporate oversight or zoning restrictions. By contrast, all Starbucks locations are, by design, non-franchised and placed at the sole discretion of ownership. So when you see one Starbucks across the street from another Starbucks, it isn't shoddy planning. No matter how invasive and gross it might appear, it's very intentional and strategic. They have looked at the numbers and found that the east side of the street has more than enough customers to satisfy another on the west side, maybe even two. By the dawn of the millennium, Starbucks had over 3,500 stores in 19 countries.
The 6th Starbucks Reserve Roastery. Other locations include New York City, Milan, and Tokyo.
And had cemented Howard Schultz's Italian fever dream of a third place. But what is that exactly? What are the other two places? Like many people before him, Schultz realized that people usually only have a few places they truly feel a calling to be at: home and work. Ideally, home is number one, but for many of us, we see our offices and break rooms more than our couches and living rooms. When I first discovered in the early 1980s the Italian espresso bars in my trip to Italy, the vision was to recreate that for America, a third place that had not existed before, said Schultz. Starbucks recreated that in America, in our own image, a place to go other than home or work. We also created an industry that did not exist: specialty coffee.
How Starbucks creates rich, smooth, roasty, balanced, and personal coffee perfection.
He saw the need for a third place, and he wanted Starbucks to be that venue. A place where people could stop by and relax between necessary visits to the other two. A place where businessmen could rub elbows with college students, and secretaries could borrow pens from others, all while swigging down their favorite overpriced caffeine Slurpees. This brings us to the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit like if you did, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you don't miss out on any of our videos in the future. Also, watch the 2 videos that are on your screen because I'm sure you'll love them. With that, I'll see you in the next video.